I am Alan Lynn Penn. Please say these words with me. I am Alan Lynn Penn. Also known as Arkansas Department of Corrections 081365. When I left you last time, I had just been rearrested. Okay. 2 days later, I appeared before municipal court. Municipal court is the lower court of the circuit court, where all evidence has to be presented to take you up to the higher court, which is circuit. When I stepped in the courtroom, you would have thought I was Michael Jackson. Cameras rolling, pictures taken. China 7, 11, and 4 was there. The Associated Press, the United Press International was there. At the time, I had a paid attorney. The judge called my name and asked what was my plea. I explained to him that my attorney was late. So he said, use one of ours right now. So the attorney stepped forward, told the judge, can I have a few minutes with my client? The judge said, okay. He looked at me, he says, did they find a gun? I said, no. Did you give a confession? I said, no. He said, okay. My understanding is that they don't have any evidence and the witness, they lost the witness. So I'm going to ask for a pretrial arrangement, see what they got. Pretrial arrangement is both sides have to present why I shouldn't be bound over or why I should be. So the judge called us forward. We step up. He said, are y'all ready to plead now? He said, yes, sir. I said, not guilty, Your Honor. And we're requesting a pretrial arrangement. You should have seen the faces on the prosecutor. The judge said, okay, I'll give both sides 2 hours to get what you need. So, 2 hours later, the judge tells us to approach the bench. He says, okay. He asked the prosecutor, what do you have? They said, Your Honor, we have various witnesses and stuff. He said, okay, where are they? Where presented to the court? He said, Your Honor, we're in the process of getting them here. So the judge looked and said, let me get this straight. He said, Channel 7, Channel 11, and 4 are here. He said, the United Press International is here. He said, Associated Press is here. You have a man before me, in front of me, who could very well lose his life, and you have nothing to present to this court? So you realize what I have to do, don't you? So they went to grabbing books for telling the judge what he could and couldn't do. And so the judge say, I'll be fair. He said, I'll give y'all 1 week to come up with something. If not, I'm non-processing this case. Well, non-process means that they will have up to a year to present the court with evidence against me, meaning I would have walked again that day. 1 week later, I'm back at municipal court in the holding cell, and every person that was scheduled to go in had went in except for me. So I asked the jail, I said, hey, what's going on with me? And he looked at his log and he said, oh, your case been bound over to circuit court. I said, what? So when I got back to jail, I called my dad. My dad said, I thought you said there wasn't a gun in the case. I said, there ain't. He said, well, they had one today. The newspaper that morning stated that the police found a shotgun at the service station at the crime scene. They believe had my prints on it. Then 2 days later, they recanted the story saying that the gun had nothing to do with the crime. They was just trying to buy time to get me bound over. Anyway, my paid attorney showed up at the county stating that, they had witnesses and evidence, and he wanted me to plead for life without sentence. I said, okay, why don't you just leave on out that door? So I ran out of money, and I was appointed to public defender's office. Mr. Howard Cooper, Mr. Bill Simpson, and Mrs. Deborah Silent. As soon as they were appointed, they went to work on my case. They filed motions after motion, challenging the identification of Joe Bailey, the cab driver, challenging all the extra stuff that the court was having. And Mr. Joe Bailey and Mr. James Frank were the two witnesses that witnessed the crime that morning. Neither one could ID me. Now, since a $6,000 reward had been offered, a month later, here's Bailey saying, he can identify me now. Bailey's statement to police was, he pulled up to the service station, looked in, seen a man for 3 seconds, and took off. He described a man as 5'11", 6 feet tall, light-skinned, 150 pounds. Here I was, 5'9" and a half, dark-skinned, and maybe $125 and with bricks in my pocket. Detective Jones sent for Mr. Bailey on February the 10th, and they took him down to the service station. They had one officer outside and one officer in the car, and had the officer inside lower in himself so they could change the description, the height of the man who committed the crime. I was still free. I don't believe this ever happened. That's just my opinion. I believe this is something that they created to make it look like they will still investigate me. So we had a hearing on this, and the judge still refused to throw this out, even though this is what you call suggested police procedures, and it's against the law. So on July the 21st, I had a hearing. By this time, I was in Roger Hall, which is a mental institute, being evaluated. Ms. Salins had filed 32 motions challenging the death penalty. When I first met her, she told me, these are her words, over my dead body will you get the death penalty. Yes, they were seeking it. So they just waived it instead of answering all of these motions. Okay, from this point on, everything that I tell you will be backed up in document. Mrs. Marshall will show you these. After Salin finished talking to the judge, he asked her, is there anything else? She stated no, but I think Bill, Mr. Simpson, and Howard, Mr. Cooper, has something to say. Please pay close attention to this. It's very important. Mr. Cooper, say, Your Honor, one thing we requested was blood analysis of the defendant as compared to blood found at the scene. I don't know what the prosecutor's position on this is. The court, well, I don't think there's a problem with it. Mr. Douglas, the prosecutor, I think the motion is basically submitting Mr. Penn to a blood sample being taken and compared with the glass, which he, the prosecutor, didn't have a problem with. Mr. Cooper, the problem is that the blood that we need compared with is in the possession of the Little Rock Police Department, or should be. Both the court and the prosecutor said it wasn't a problem, and even gave suggestions on how to get this done. So my other lawyer Mr. Simpson just got tired of the back and forth and flat out asked the prosecutor if the state had a sample from the scene. Mr. Douglas, I'm sure I do. There's some glass that was recovered that had blood on it, according to the file. Mr. Douglas, we can ask Ivan Jones, but according to the file, it is. Mr. Cooper, it's not listed as evidence, but it's listed as something that they discovered at the scene. A side note, all things that's recovered at a crime scene is supposed to be recorded and put in the chain of evidence. That's the law. And something very important is blood should have been in the chain, not in no simple fact statement that something they discovered. Neither my lawyer, either one of my lawyers, ever mentioned anything about a glass. As you've seen, the only person who said glass was the prosecutor. And he said, according to his file, the glass was recovered and stored. Why is this so important? Detective Jones told the court that they didn't find any blood. Now, James Franks, one of the witnesses, said that he watched the crime and watched the man shoot a window out, jump out the window, and limp away. Officer Valerie Staley-Beal was the first officer on the scene. Her statement was there was blood on the broken window. The prosecutor, Mr. Douglas, stated, according to his files, it was recovered and stored. But here is Detective Ivan Jones testifying that if it's not in the chain, it's not in there. Getting all mad. So Mr. Simpson called him out. He said the files indicated there was blood on the glass, and also there was blood dropping all around the window on the ground. Detective Jones said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Could you show me that somewhere?" Mr. Cooper said, "Sure." Detective Jones still trying to argue the fact with false statements, and they're talking about he checked and other officers checked. Mr. Cooper countered with what he said about Officer Staley-Beal seeing blood. Detective Jones, please listen closely. He said Officer Staley is apparently not correct. There is some red paint from the letters on the glass. He stated that he checked and other officers checked too. Here's another side note. First, Officer Staley-Beal was a female officer, and that's how he was putting it to the court. You gonna listen to a woman and not me? Shouldn't his statement have been, we asked Officer Staley to show us since she the one found it? But even at my trial, she never backed down, saying what she found that night. She said it was blood. That's what it appeared to be. Back then, we didn't have DNA, but we had what you call blood grouping, which could determine what blood type out of the blood. Plus, remember, I was checked for cuts that morning. So they knew I wasn't hurt, and that would have hurt their case. Because they knew the blood wasn't mine. To this day, I have never viewed those files from the Little Rock police or the prosecutor. This is what I've been trying to get from the state since 2014. Because if I had the blood, I could just ask them to test it and prove that I wasn't the man that shot that window out and left them fingerprints and climbed out. But for some reason, Judge Timothy Fox keep denying it. Detective Jones changed all that paperwork, show you I know what I'm talking about, here's another document with Judge Floyd Lofton ordering him to permit my attorneys, Mr. Koopman and Simpson, the opportunity to inspect the files and the evidence. Listen, I've been in jail almost 6 months, and my lawyers had yet to inspect the files after filing motion of discovery. Think about this for a while Ms. Marsh show you these photos of the crime scene. Look at that broken window and the mess that was made. Him trying to flee. And left fingerprints and blood in the area. And we both will agree, after viewing these photos, that whoever it was in a rush. Now, look at this picture of me. Is that the picture of a man who just blew someone's face off? Or someone who knew he hadn't did anything? This picture was taken maybe 2 hours after the crime. Look at the diagram. Where's the location of the print? I'll show you how this was a real live cover-up. This will conclude session 3. I know this doesn't